On Tuesday, Tesla had a battery day, and some very, very interesting announcements came out of that. Potentially industry-changing announcements. So to talk about that, we're joined by Sam Abuelsamid from Guidehouse Research. So welcome to the interview, Sam.
Well, I'm glad to be back, Markham.
Well, look, give us your overview of what got announced and how important it is.
Yeah, so Tesla, clearly, like everyone else in the EV industry, is super focused on trying to drive cost out of the batteries. The batteries are the single most expensive component in an EV, still by a wide margin, and trying to both reduce the cost and be able to produce more, especially in light of yesterday's announcement out of California that California Governor Gavin Newsom wants to ban sales of new internal combustion vehicles by 2035 in the state. And so, with what's expected to be a rapid expansion of EV deployment over the next 10, 15, 20 years, we need to both get the cost down, but also, make sure that we have enough raw materials to produce these things. So Tesla focused on a number of areas for that. First up was changing the cell format, again, going to a larger cell format. They did that with the Model 3 and then Model Y, going from an 18650 cell to a 2170, which is a little bit longer, a little bit bigger around. Now going from that to what they're calling a 4680 cell, which again is longer, larger diameter. It's got about 5.5 times the volume of a 2170 cell. And so in turn, each cell holds more energy, roughly about 5 times as much energy in a given cell. But inside of that cell, they're also changing the design of how it's manufactured. Current cells, especially cylindrical cells, have they wrap the anode and cathode, the positive and negative electrodes of the battery, take those, sandwich them together, and roll it up into what's called a jelly roll. And on the ends of the anode and the cathode, there are tabs, and those are connected to the terminals on the outside the can of the battery. Those are bottlenecks for electrons flowing in and out of a battery, out of a cell, and also a bottleneck in terms of heat dissipation. So what Tesla wants to do is essentially eliminate those single tabs, those single points of contact for the electrons flowing in and out. And essentially what they described is a system where instead of a single positive and negative tab, you now have essentially a whole string of tabs all the way around, essentially along the entire perimeter of those electrodes is a contact surface. So now you have literally thousands of tabs instead of a single tab. Interesting concept. If you can actually mass produce it, it should provide some significant improvements in battery performance and also cost. That, of course, is as usual is the key in all of this, as so many battery breakthroughs have been over the last 20 years. If you can actually mass produce it, they are apparently producing them in small volumes now in their pilot plant, but scaling that up to produce millions, tens of millions of cells a year is a different story.
Now, the upshot of all of this is going to be cheaper cars, and Elon Musk threw out a number that I thought was kind of startling. He's aiming for a $25,000 car in the not too distant future.
Yeah, and funny you should mention that. Somebody just retweeted this morning on Twitter an article that I wrote on Autoblog in 2006, not long after they introduced the Roadster, where Elon Musk said, "Yeah, we're aiming to have a $30,000 car in 2010 as part of a 3-model lineup." Tesla, 14 years later, still isn't selling a $30,000 car. Someday, I expect they probably will. I wouldn't necessarily put a date on when Tesla will offer a $25,000 car, but it's absolutely a laudable goal, and it's a goal that everybody's reaching for.
Now, I would expect that $25,000, that is almost better than parity with gasoline-powered cars. And when you add the levelized cost of driving, the total cost of driving, that means that electric would then become like way cheaper than gasoline, and one would think that at that point the hockey stick gets on the adoption curve gets pretty straight.
Yeah, and obviously there's a lot of caveats with that $25,000 car. I mean, what kind of vehicle is that for $25,000? Today you can go out and buy a base Nissan Leaf for just over $30,000. Uh, but that's a car that only has 150 miles of range. It doesn't sell in huge numbers here, but it's possible. And certainly in China, there are some lower cost EVs, that are getting down to that price range. But again, a lot of those are using lithium iron phosphate batteries, shorter range, lower cost, but shorter range. And what form factor? I mean, is it going to be in a form factor that consumers are actually going to want to buy? So a lot of unanswered questions. Great goal, but yeah, $25,000, you're definitely getting into the heart of the market. Mainstream cars, like Toyota Camry, Honda Accord, Corolla, Civic. Those, you can get all of those cars in the low $20,000 price range, and some even under $20,000 still.
Well, this will be the final question, but let's talk about the Plaid model, the Plaid version of the trim model of the Model S sedan. It's going to go for $139,990. I guess they're really allergic to $140,000. But the performance specs on this thing are nuts.
Yeah, I think clearly, Tesla and other manufacturers have proven that EVs can be insanely fast, and so can a lot of other types of cars. I think they've made their point. I don't think it's necessary to keep putting out faster and faster cars like this. I think it's a waste of time, and really these cars, that kind of performance is not usable on the road. It's all just for bragging rights, and they probably won't sell that many of them, but the really hardcore and affluent fans will go for them. But I think that companies like Lucid and Tesla and others need to start backing off and focusing on other things instead.
Sam, thank you as always for this very insightful comments, and we'll look forward to chatting with you again in the near future.
Sounds good.